Well, the next match deserves from me an apology, because I have to apologize to someone in this match because of all the bad things that I've said about him. Of course, those bad things were precipitated by the fact that he was acting like a complete idiot. However, Miro, who could have thought this? Where have you been all my life, you big beast, you? What? I am so verklempt over this, so bumfuzzled. They had this guy all along, and I know he's been doing this for several weeks now or a few months or whatever, Miro the Redeemer and the promos and the whole 9 yards, but still, this was a guy that came in, bleached blonde, wearing a pink Minnie Mouse t-shirt and loafers, as the best man at a wedding of a 12-year-old to Penelope Pitstop, and they were playing with broken video games and mad about their fucking score being unplugged or whatever. And we raked this goofball over the coals, and it didn't help that he tried to joust on Twitter, and English being his second language, he made that statement about, "I will come all over you like God's wrath." He was here all along, and they just now figured this out. Was this him in the WWE, and I just never saw it?
No, this is better than what he was in WWE. And remember, when he came over, I said, I have some hopes for this guy because he's a guy that has shown potential, shown intensity, shown work rate, and they've done nothing with. Maybe this is his chance. And then he came out wearing a Minnie Mouse shirt, or Mickey Mouse, excuse me. Let me get that straight. It was pink, but I believe
it was Minnie. I thought it was Minnie.
I think it was Mickey, although it was a pink shirt. That's what would throw you off. If it had polka dots, it would be more clear in our memories. Right. But that was what we got, and what they have turned him into, and none of this will ever forgive. He may be the Redeemer now. Nothing redeems what he did with Kip Sabian at all. But he is now, I think, better and more interesting than he ever was in WWE.
One of their best heels here. And this match, Bryan Danielson against Miro. This match would have worked in the Attitude Era on Raw or on a pay-per-view back when a large number of people actually watched this shit. It wouldn't have been out of place. It wouldn't have been out of place on a high-quality WCW program. It wouldn't have been out of place in Ring of Honor. It wouldn't have been out of place in any wrestling promotion over the last 25 years because it was stiff and exciting. Danielson really, he fought and laid it in from underneath because there was a sense of desperation and urgency at the start because you got a powerhouse against a technician. And Danielson was projecting that he was wary of Miro as an opponent. Imagine that. And they took some big bumps again, but they were selling. Bryan Danielson, obviously, I think, was leading the pace of this thing because it seemed like something that a really experienced guy would do. Miro had a great heel attitude. Danielson sold his ass off. They didn't go 100 miles an hour. There was no joking. There was no silly. They were serious. The work was believable. The match made sense. At one point, Danielson fired up and made a comeback with those running drop kicks, and then he charged, and Miro caught him on the fly and hit a beautiful Samoan drop, nice and smooth. They picked up the pace. I wrote Miro is better than anyone could have ever known based on everything else he's ever done. Danielson brought him up with the stomps to the face, and yes, but then Miro power bombs him. Miro goes for the camel clutch. Danielson fought it, but Miro got it, and the people were into it, and they popped on a rope break. These are people, again, what I mentioned in MJF and Darby Allin, these are people that see these fucking vicious, awful, supposed assassination-type blows and concertos and the furniture and the table breaking and the dives into numerous people, but they pop on a rope break when they care about who's involved. And then Miro got booed for the eye poke, or the eye gouge rather, when Danielson had countered another camel clutch and got the label lock, and Miro just goes in gouging his eyes, and people are like, oh shit, he's gouging his eyes. They'll still go for it if they care about who's involved. And, Miro was toying with him at some, the kick, like, you can't hurt me. This is the way you should stand there and say, go ahead, motherfucker, hit me. A big heel and a beat up smaller baby face, and the baby face trying the kicks, and he's laughing them off. And then he'll drop Danielson with a stiff one. And then finally, the only thing that I didn't like about this match, again, was the finish. Because they go up to the turnbuckles and they're fighting and jockeying for position and everything. But Danielson hits a DDT off the top, kind of. Because how do you really do that? And it wasn't as smoothly or sharply executed as everything else they had done, but boom, he does that, and then he front face locks Miro, and the referee rings the bell because he's out. All the and I know they're telling the story of the bad neck that Miro has, or the weak neck, but all the shit they did that was brilliant, and the sloppiest looking thing was the finish. But it was a great match. And they tried, and they worked, and they were stiff, and they were serious. And since I took the piss out of one thing, I will suggest an alternative. You can't mean to tell me that Bryan Danielson can't figure out a different way to do a DDT after the big guy fucking maybe misses something and hits his head or lands on his neck anyway, than off the top rope. We've established the guy's got a neck of sand or whatever, but otherwise than going up there and doing that, this thing was great. What'd you think?
I really liked it. I've liked Danielson in AEW, minus some of the matches where it just becomes too much back and forth. I could slug you, you could slug me. I think this was good, and I think a large part of it was Miro. Miro, I think it was on commentary here, and we could talk about the commentary later, because what a fucking disaster. But I think it was here where Jim Ross said, referencing Bill Watts, something that Bill Watts used to say, look at his eyes.
Yeah.
You believe Miro. He says wacky fucking shit in those promos, but you believe him. You believe that he believes it. And he's a great monster. He's trying to think who's a better monster heel in AEW. He may be the best one. I mean, Hobbs has a potential for down the line, but...
Where'd Hobbs go?
Oh, they're trying to sign Dante to Team Taz.
Well, but I mean, he hadn't wrestled in a month or whatever since, didn't he... He was in the tournament. What happened?
He lost in the tournament, and...
That's right.
That's been it. But Miro's fantastic. The only question I would have for you, this played out in the Fuego del Sol series of matches, and here... The whole idea he has a bad neck, he's susceptible to the DDT, specifically one off the ropes. Do you just keep this going forever? Do you come up with some kind of gimmick where now his neck is okay? What do you do with this?
Well, I love the idea that the monster has a weakness, and he's incorporated into his promos well, and you can do things with it if you don't overdo it. If, some fucking underneath preliminary job guy gives him a DDT, it shouldn't even be able to execute a DDT on him, for one thing. It should be a weakness that only the main event guys have the skill and knowledge and power and whatever to capitalize on. You can't just go out there and have... Who was it that gave him he was with a minute jobber who was still getting offense because he dropped him on his head once.
That was Fuego del Sol.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking of Samurai Del. What's all the Del Sols? The Del Sol family is suddenly taking over wrestling. There's more of them than there is the Welches, the Fullers, and the Von Erichs. But yes, you should. He should have a weakness that the main event guys can capitalize on, because it gives an element of hope to the babyface that's having the shit kicked out of him. If he can just land that one thing in that one way, then he'd turn it around. So I don't have a problem with that. I just don't think that everybody in the world ought to be able to capitalize on it. having said, where do you go with that? Does it get better? Does it stay bad? You know, this would be too much comedy, and I hesitate to say it because I'm afraid they might do it. But in a normal wrestling promotion from years ago where everything wasn't played for laughs and comedy and a ridiculous picture, and especially if the guy had a manager that could say it, but if he came out with a goddamn neck collar on that was made of some hard, sturdy material, and nobody could fucking not only hurt his neck now, but he could use it neck butting people. But at the same time, I can see the big fucker trying to turn his head in that, and he'd be walking like Robbie the Robot. So no, that wouldn't be a thing to do. But who knows? Maybe he meets a talented surgeon like Dr. Henry Frankenstein. And he fixes the neck. I don't know. But again, if Mike Tyson was susceptible to a right cross after he threw a left jab or whatever, he still wouldn't be afraid of fucking little orphan Annie throwing the jab or the cross. It has to be a main event guy for the weakness. That's my thought.